ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Bhakti Tattva Vivek deliberations on pure devotion, Shuddha Bhakti by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We have been discussing chapter 2. Practically today we will be finishing chapter 2 on Bhakti Abhas. Bhakti Abhas we have studied are the Tatastha Lakshan, and just like in Ratyabhas there is Chaya and Pratibhimba, so Bhakti Abhas is also having Pratibhimba and Chaya. And within Pratibhim, we saw 3 different categories. Nirvishesh Jnanavrita, Bahirmukha and Viparita Vastu, Bhakti Janita, Bhakti Abhas. And then in the last class, we began with the Chaya Bhakti Abhas. And how Chaya Bhakti Abhas is, it's a great fortune if we come in touch with Chaya Bhakti Abhas. So we began this discussion and we discussed the quotations from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, which have already dealt quite in detail, so we did not go. And we discussed how Bhaktivinoda Thakur again in Chaya Bhakti Abhas classifies them into 2. Chaya Bhakti Abhas is of 2 types. Swarupa Gyan Abhava Janita Bhakti Abhas, semblance of devotion, Bhakti Abhas, that appears in the absence of knowledge, Jnana Abhava Janita, of one's what? Inherent identity, Swarup Gyan. So one doesn't have knowledge about one's inherent identity. So Swarup Gyan Abhava Janita Bhakti Abhas and Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas, the semblance of devotion in which the stimulation for bhakti is caused by the influence of having into contact with objects such as time, place, and circumstances that are related to Bhagwan. Bhakti Uddipak. The Uddipak are, the deities, the holy places, the pure devotees. These are the Vastu, and in them there is Shakti. And because of that Shakti, Janita, born, or it is caused, there is Bhakti abhasa. We feel we feel symptoms of Bhakti like tears and hair standing on end. So these are not real uh, Shuddha Bhakti or Ratyabhas, but they are only Abhas, Bhakti Abhas. And they are born not because of your purity, because of the purity of the Dham or the pure devotees or the deities. Because of that Shakti in them, it reflects and we feel that in our heart. So these are the two. So today we will discuss these two. These are quite simple, and that will practically end chapter 2, which is most important chapter in Bhakti Tattva Vivek. Of course, chapter 1 is also. Chapter 3 and 4 are quite relatively easy, and we'll be able to quickly go through them because the characteristics of pure devotion will be discussed in chapter 3, and the qualifications to practice Shuddha Bhakti. That's going to be very important for us also. What are the adhikar for practicing Shuddha Bhakti will come up in chapter 4, which is also quite relatively simple. So let us now begin discussing of the first type. So there is Swarupa Jnana Abhava Janita Bhakti Abhas. This is what first we will discuss. The intrinsic knowledge, Swarup Jnana, concerning the sadhaka, the practitioner, sadhana, the practice, and sadhya, the object of achievement, is non-different from the inherent nature of Shuddha Bhakti. So Swarup Gyan about the sadhaka, that I am spirit soul, sadhana, the abhidheya, and sadhya is prem prayojan. So all these are non-different from the inherent nature of Shuddha Bhakti. The Shuddha Bhakti is Sarup Siddha Bhakti, and it is Chitta Shakti. It is completely transcendental, spiritual. The sadhaka is Jivatma, he is spiritual. The sadhana, also what we practice, that sadhana is belonging to the internal potency of the Lord only. The sadhya also we attain, Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti is also part of the, Sarup Shakti only of the Lord. So they are all non-different. Now, every statement I'm going to read, I'll give certain explanation. And if you have any doubts, please raise your hands. Otherwise, I'll just continue with the discussion. When such Swarup Gyan has not yet arisen within a sadhaka, but the desire to cross over the ocean of material existence has come within him, then whatever symptoms of bhakti visible in him in that condition are merely bhakti abhas. So when such Swarup Gyan has not yet risen in the sadhaka's heart, and there is still desire for mukti, to become free from this. Many times devotees, sometimes they make statements, samsar se mujhe bahar jana hai. I want to, end my material existence and go to the spiritual world. Even that kind of a desire, if it is there, then whatever symptoms of bhakti we are seeing, they are not bhakti, they are bhakti abhas. Now, my question to you here in the audience is, when is the Swarup Gyan revealed of the sadhaka? When is the Swarup Gyan revealed to the sadhaka? When is the Swarup Gyan revealed to the sadhaka? Anyone would like to try? Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, Swarup Gyan means we are saying Swarupa realization.
Yes.
And if so, then it will be at Bhava.
It is at Bhava. The Swarupa as spirit soul is revealed at the stage of Nishtha. And our Bhava, our Rasa with Krishna. In what Rasa, the spiritual development of the soul begins from Nishtha stage with Raganuga Bhakti. And our Rasa with Krishna is fully manifest at Bhava stage. So, yes, what you say is true. So the Swarupa Gyan, Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nitya Das, which rasa, it is Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya, that is revealed in Bhava. So it's a progression. It's not like something but definitely we can say after Nishta and fully manifested at the stage of Bhava. So when there is no knowledge of Sarup Gyan, then whatever symptoms of Bhakti they are not Bhakti, they are Bhakti abhas. This semblance of devotion, Bhakti abhas, transforms into Shuddha Bhakti when one obtains this Sarup Gyan, intrinsic knowledge. Even for Vaishnavas who are duly initiated into genuine Sampradaya, the illumination of one's eternal identity arising from Diksha mantra that they have received from their Diksha Guru will not appear until they are fortunate enough to receive instructions on this intrinsic knowledge, Sarup Gyan. So although we take the Diksha mantras, it doesn't mean that at the time of initiation, our Sarupa, I am so and so Das, I get the name and this is my Sarupa in the spiritual world. No. We all know that, although we theoretically understand we are not this body, we are spirit soul, but that realization or that realized state, the Sthita Pragya state, is not achieved because the Sthita Pragya symptoms are very clear in the Bhagavad Gita. So until one comes to that and further the spiritual development of the soul by the practice of Ragana Bhakti, when our rasa. So till that Sarup Gyan is revealed, it will not appear. So that is the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making, and we should be very clear about it. Due to ignorance of this intrinsic knowledge, Sarup Gyan, of the Bhakti process, Sarup Siddha Bhakti remains covered, and hence only the semblance of devotion, Bhakti Abhas, is visible. So Sarup Siddhi Bhakti means Uttama Bhakti. As I mentioned, Sarup Siddha Bhakti is also Uttama Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti. It is called as Sarup Siddha Bhakti. Before that, it is, Mishra Bhakti, or what is called as Bhakti Abhas. So when does Shuddha Bhakti begin? At what stage does Shuddha Bhakti begin in our spiritual journey? When does Shuddha Bhakti begin? Who will answer this? When does Shuddha Bhakti begin? Nadiya Chaitanya Prabhuji.
So, at the stage of Bhava, Prabhu?
No. At the stage of Madhyamadhikari, usually it is at the stage of Nishta. Our Anarth Nivritti has gone, the conditioning of the subtle body is, Tadar Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. The Naishtiki Bhakti begins from there, and then the effects of the modes are not there. Then you can practice your devotion, constitutional activity. Sarup Siddhi Bhakti begins, and it matures at the stage of Bhava, you can say. Matures fully at the stage of Bhava. So that is the point here. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes a very interesting note. The devotion of the Panch Upasakas. We remember that Viparita Vastu Janita Bhakti Abhas, Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas we had studied. There are these 5 Sampradayas, and the Shaktas, the Shauryas, the Ganapatyas, the Shaivas, and the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas there are not the Vaishnavas in the 4 Sampradayas. That was discussed, if you remember. So now very interesting, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the devotion of Panch Upasakas who remain aloof from the teachings of impersonalism. Because we saw that Panch Upasakas, even Vishnu worship is impersonal Vishnu there. They are all impersonalist. And perform the worship of their favorite deity by considering him or her to be a direct expansion of Bhagavan. And the supreme goal is also Chaya Bhakti Abhas. So there is the Panch Upasakas who are not impersonalist. They perform worship of the deity, and they consider this deity as an expansion of Bhagavan. So then this kind of bhakti which is practiced, this is Chaya Bhakti Abhas. In the Gita also Krishna speaks about it, but we will not go into it. It's a different discussion, but it is there. in 9.15, Jnana Yajnena Chapanya Yajanto Mam Upasate Ekatvena Pratakvena Bauda Vishwato Mukam. Pratakvena. So that all these different demigods are an aspect of Brahman, the Lord. Mam Upasate, it is mentioned. So that bhakti is also Mishra Bhakti, and here specifically the term is used, Chaya Bhakti Abhas. Still, there is a great deal of difference between Panchupasak Vaishnavas and Sampradayic Vaishnavas. So there is this Panchupasak Vaishnavas. Now they are not these impersonalists, please remember. They are Panchupasakas, but they are Vaishnavas. But there is still difference between these Vaishnavas and the 4 Sampradayic Vaishnavas. Now, what is the difference? Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings out. The resolute faith of the Sampradayic Vaishnavas in the personal aspect of Bhagavan is much stronger than that of the Panchupasaka Vaishnavas. So this is one difference between the two. Second, by receiving proper instruction on philosophical principles, a Sampradayic Vaishnava remains hopeful of reaching a very exalted stage of pure Vaishnavism. So this is the second difference between the Sampradayic Vaishnavas. But a Panchupasaka cannot be as hopeful of achieving such an exalted stage of Vaishnavism by receiving instructions on philosophical principles according to their own custom. According to their own custom, then to achieve that exalted stage, it is difficult for them. That's the point. The accessibility of association of pure devotees for Sampradayic Vaishnavas is much better than it is for Panchapasakas. So the Sampradayic Vaishnavas have association of pure devotees. So that also makes a lot of difference. I hope you're getting the points. If you have any questions, please raise your hands. This is a little difficult to digest. Oh, there is some problem with the. I'll just give me a second. I hope you're getting the clear difference between Panchupasaka Vaishnavas and Sampradayic Vaishnavas. I hope it is quite clear. Okay, I'm just once again we'll continue our discussion. Now, if by some fortune the Panchupasaka obtain the association of devotees and simultaneously keep themselves aloof from the association of impersonalists, they can be refined by the Sampradayic system and can begin pursuing the path of Shuddha Bhakti. Two scriptural evidences mentioned in Bhakti Sandarbha are being quoted here. So he quotes two scriptural evidence to prove how the Panchupasaka Vaishnavas can become Sampradayic Vaishnavas and attain a higher exalted stage. So two verses. In the Skand Puran, it is confirmed that Sampradayic Vaishnavas achieve their desired result even by the practice of Chaya Bhakti Abhasa. The Chaya Bhakti Abhasa, don't think that it is something ordinary. Even practicing mixed bhakti, you can attain Vaikuntha. Please remember that. But only by practicing Shuddha Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti, we can attain Golok among the 4 rasas. That is only what Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis are giving in our line. So that's why our aim should not be to settle down to Chaya Bhakti Abhasa, but to from there come to Shuddha Bhakti. Because the Mishra Bhakti can lead us to Vaikuntha also. So, how it is, Skanda Puran narrates. Sri Mahadev says, Hari Bhakti Vilas. Diksha matrena Krishnasya naramoksham labanti ve kim punar ye sada bhaktya pujyantya achutam nara. just by receiving initiation into the Krishna mantra. Diksha matrena Krishnasya nara. Moksham labate vai. One can attain liberation. So what can be said about Kim Punari Sada? One who can achieve by performing devotion unto the Supreme Lord. So, Bhaktya Pujante Achutam Nara. By performing devotion, then what can be said? Just by Diksha, one can attain liberation. Regarding Panchupasakas who remaining free from Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, we discussed this Panchupasakas who are practicing Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas. You know what is the term used by Bhaktivinoda Thakur there? Anyone knows? Anyone remembers? Can try. It will be good. Anyone knows and remembers? Anyone remembers? Janita Bhakti Abhas, Viparita Vastu. These are the, Pratibimba, impersonalist Panchupasakas. So which was spoken and which we had discussed. So what's the point? Sorry, we are, here, yeah. Two scripture, the first reader. Regarding Panchupasakas who remaining free from Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, that is the Viparita Vastu, Bhakti Janita, have developed Chaya Bhakti Abhas. So these Panchupasakas who are free from this impersonal conception and they have developed Chaya Bhakti Abhas and they have now become Sampradayak Vaishnavas. The Adivara Puran quotes, Janmantar Sahastreshu Samaradya Vrishadvajam Vaishnavatvam Labet Kaschit Sarva Papa Shaye Sati. If one worships Ganesh for thousands of births, Janmantara Sahasreshu, and becomes free from all sins, Sarva Papa Shaye Sati, then it is possible to come to the platform of Vaishnavism. Vaishnavatvam Labet Kaschit. So this is how the Panchupasakas who are free from impersonal conception, from the Viparita Buddhi Janita Bhakti Abhas, Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, they are free. So they come to what? Sampradayak Vaishnavism. Now, he concludes. The scriptural conclusion is that Shaktas, worshippers of Durga, are gradually elevated to Bhakti by first becoming worshippers of Sun God. The Shaktas first become Sauryas, then worshippers of Ganesh, then they become Ganapatyas, then worshippers of Shiva, Shaivas, then Panchapasaka Vaishnavas, and then finally Sampradayak Vaishnavas. Interestingly, I met a Sri Vaishnava in South India in one of the spiritual trips we had gone in Ahobilam. And I became quite close to him. And I asked his journey of how he came into spiritual life. Although he was born in Sri Vaishnavism, but he told me that initially he was a worshipper of Durga. He had come during his college time in touch with the Krishna conscious movement. As a student, he used to attend Bhagavad Gita classes. He had taken up to chanting. But when he took up the job, somehow he stopped those practices. But he became more a worshipper of Durga. And then slowly, gradually, he became worshipper of Sun God. This is what personally his own life experience he was telling me. And then from there, he became a worshipper of Ganesh. Further, he evolved and became inquisitive about Shiva and became a devoted to Shiva. And then he became a worshipper of Vishnu. Now, from worship of Vishnu, somehow he came in his hometown in touch with Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And slowly he took up to the practice of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then slowly he uh, came in touch with ISKCON, and then now he's reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 16 rounds. He's got Radha Krishna at home. And he has touch with Sri Vaishnavism, but his attraction is more towards Radha and Krishna, because at home he's got a Goshala and he's got beautiful Radha Krishna deities, large deities he's got. And the whole family is engaged in serving the deities, and they have a Goshala. Both, the Sri Vaishnava brothers are uh, serving the Goshala. Both have retired from their jobs and full-time dependent on the Lord. So this gradual evolution I have seen personally. So this is how the evolution happens. By the careful analysis of the words of the scriptures, it is understood that by the influence of association with pure devotees, Chaya, Bhakti, Abhas transforms into pure devotion. Okay, so we have discussed now the Swarupa Gyan Abhava Janita Bhakti Abhas. Now the next is Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas. But are there any questions? Is there any clarification up till now what we have discussed? Any questions, any clarifications? No, fine. So next we will go to the last part. This is relatively quite simple, as the term is saying. Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas. The Bhakti Abhas, what you are experiencing, it is caused, Janita or born, because there are the Vastu Shakti, there are the Vastu Shakti in the Dham, in the deities, and they are Bhakti Uddipaka. They are Uddipan, and you experience them. And this is Bhakti Abhas because born out of this Uddipan Vastus. In the scripture, there are many examples of Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas. The Tulsi plant, Mahaprasad, Vaishnav Prasad, the days of devotional observance such as Ekadasi, the deity of Bhagwan, the holy dhams, the Ganga, the foot dust of the Vaishnavas, and so on are various objects that act as Bhakti Uddipaka, stimulating to devotion. Just 2 days back, I was hearing Deen Bandhu Prabhuji when they went with few devotees to one city in America to start a center. They used to just carry some incense, some books, and do kirtan, and that's how they used to start a center. So they went to a church because that church was very broad-minded. People were broad-minded, and they asked, "Can we stay in some place?" And there was one lawyer there, who was very rich, and he said, "You come and stay in my place." And Deen Bandhu Prabhu had cooked halwa for his deities. This halwa he served the lawyer's mother. And later on, they opened a center in the city, and once they were doing Harinam in the street, and the mother happened to see Deen Bandhu Prabhu, and she came and she said, "I don't know what you gave me that day. That's sweet. I think I don't know what you put in that, but that is the best day of my life. That experience of that sweet, it's the best day of my life." So because it was cooked with love and offered to Krishna, it was Mahaprasad. And just by tasting this Mahaprasad, it had such an impact. And she felt that it was the best day of her life. So this is an example of how Bhakti Uddipaka Vastu Shakti Janita Bhakti Abhas can happen. Now, regarding Tulsi plant, I heard a story of one person who was traveling in the sea in a ship. Somehow he carried this Tulsi plant in his room and he was just watering it. He did not know it is a Tulsi plant. And the effect of just doing this service was, after 1 or 2 days, he started feeling that I should stop eating non-veg. So he stopped eating non-veg. And then when the ship went to the port and he went out in the city and he saw Hare Krishna devotee, and this devotee gave him a book, Bhagavad Gita. Because he had attained now the Sukriti of Tulsi Devi, he purchased the Bhagavad Gita and he came back and he said that I'll read it. So the next day also he went out and unfortunately he met the same devotee. The devotee asked, have you read this book? And then he did not want to tell lies. So he said, no, today I'll go and read it, he said. And the third day, fortunately, when he was again out in the city, he met the same devotee. And this time he said, oh, he might ask, whether I have read. So when the devotee again asked, have you read? He told a lie. Yes, I have read. So what did you read? What did you understand? Oh, I read, but I'm confused. I did not something, he said. Then the devotee said, no, you have not read. Then this person was shocked. How does this person, devotee, know whether he has some mystic powers? How does he know that I have not read? He said, either when you read, you will be fully convinced or you'll not be convinced at all. There cannot be in between. So then this devotee became very serious, went back to the ship and started reading the Gita. Later on, he became a devotee. So this is the potency of the Bhakti abhasa, which is, by serving Tulsi or by having prasad, Vaishnav prasad. So we should, because after a few years being in Krishna consciousness, because these activities we are doing every day and regularly, we should not take them as ordinary. No, these are completely chit, spiritual activities. And if we start seeing them as mundane, then it will have a negative impact on our consciousness. So we should see them as all transcendental. The living entities receive immense benefit even by coming in contact with these objects unknowingly. So I gave you 2 examples of it. Sometimes benefits is occurred even when the innocent jiva unknowingly commits an offense to them. So to great personalities, if somebody offends them also, then they can get immense benefit. Where is the example in the Bhagavatam of this? Where, coming in touch with a great Mahabhagavat, another person doesn't know that he's a Mahabhagavat and he offends him and he gets great benefit. Where is the example in the Bhagavatam? Anyone? Which pastime is there in the Bhagavatam about this point, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is stating? Reena Mataji? Where somebody offends a great personality and gets pure devotion. Virendra Prabhuji, which is the pastime in the Bhagavatam?
True, I think Narad Muni was offended by
Nalakuvar and Manigarib?
yes.
Yeah, but the more apt example is of Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugun. Maharaj Rahugun did not know Jad Bharat as a great personality because he did not look like a sadhu. Narad Muni is a sadhu. They knew about it. But unknowingly, Jad Bharat had committed a great offense. And Jad Bharat showed compassion to him, and then he attained pure devotion. Coming in contact with these objects in this way is also Bhakti abhasa. So whatever you experience is also Bhakti abhasa there. Devotees will not be astonished upon witnessing such remarkable results of Bhakti abhasa. All such results are due solely to the immense power of Shuddha Bhakti. So the power is coming from that Shuddha Bhakti, that Shuddha Bhakta. If the process of Jnana and Yoga are not executed purely, and if they are not supported by Bhakti abhasa, then they are incapable of granting any result. So this is very important. Even in the path of Jnana and Ashtanga Yoga, if there is no element of Bhakti in it, then those paths will not give fruits. In fact, the Bhakti which is present in that will give the fruit of Jnana, that is liberation, and Yoga, which is Mukti. So they are incapable of granting the results. Okay, I don't know why this has happened like this. Yeah. On the other hand, Bhakti Devi is completely independent, regardless of the motives of those who take shelter of her. She fulfills some disturbance in the background. Please always try to sit in a place where there is no disturbance. Otherwise, we cannot focus. She fulfills their innermost desires. Although all these results are visible in the semblance of devotion, it is not the prescribed conduct. The execution of unalloyed devotion is our only duty. So although this Bhakti abhasa we experience, but that is not, our real, real goal. The real goal is to ultimately come to the point of Shuddha Bhakti. Those who desire absolute success should not, under any circumstance, give a place to Pratibimba Bhakti abhasa within their hearts. Especially, we should be careful of Pratibimba Bhakti abhasa. By the strength of bhajan performed under the guidance of pure Vaishnavas, they should cross beyond Chaya Bhakti abhasa and take exclusive shelter of the lotus feet of Bhakti Devi. So we go through practice of Bhakti abhasa, but we should carefully avoid Pratibimba Bhakti abhasa and go through Chaya Bhakti abhasa. From Chaya Bhakti abhasa, come to Shuddha Bhakti sadhana stage, and then Shuddha Bhakti sadhya stage. Therefore, all of you kindly accept the following principle presented by Vishwa Vaishnava Das. Vishwa Vaishnava Das is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Pratibimbas tata chaya bheda tattva vicharata bhaktya bhaso dvedasopi varjaniya rasartabhihi. Those who desire to relish the liquid mellows of devotion, rasa artabhi, those who want to relish rasa, should always remain aloof from both types of Bhakti abhasa. Whether it is Pratibimba or Chaya, you should be aloof. By reviewing this subject matter, it is concluded that the semblance of devotion is two types, Pratibimba Bhakti abhasa and Chaya Bhakti abhasa. Pratibimbas tata Chaya, Bheda Tattva Vicharata. Should Tattvata understand this. Pratibimba Bhakti abhasa has the tendency to make the living entity commit offenses because there is the impersonalism. No? While Chaya Bhakti abhasa is incomplete in itself, because that is not the goal. Ultimately, we have to take up to Shuddha Bhakti. The execution of unalloyed devotion is only recommended activity for the living entity. Very beautifully, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this couplet has nicely, summarized this. So there is one subtopic because the mention of offense was there. There is a tendency. So there is one point which is an additional comment from Bhakti Tattvavik, offense towards Bhakti. This is a very dangerous item. If you have any questions, you can always raise your hand. We execute so many limbs of Bhakti, such as accepting the Diksha mantra from a bona fide spiritual master, every day applying tilaka to 12 different parts of the body, performing archana unto Sri Krishna, observing the vow of Ekadashi, chanting the holy name and remembering Krishna according to one's ability, visiting the holy places like Vrindavan and so forth. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, but unfortunately, we don't try hard enough to avoid committing offenses at the feet of Bhakti Devi. So we don't much carefully deliberate on Vaishnav Aprad, Dham Aprad, Nam Aprad. Every day we could do these activities because we take it casually. And that is the reason. So this is a very important statement of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and we should meditate upon it. So that's why these two seminars which we have been focusing, one is on inattention while chanting Namaprad, the root of all offenses, and Vaishnava Prad or Vaishnava Ninda. So these two, if we take care, then we can swiftly progress in Bhakti. Giving the example of the activities of Mukund, Sriman Mahaprabhu highlighted in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Khand, 10th chapter, 185, 188, 190 and 192. Shane Danta Trinaloy, Shane Jati Mare, O Khanda Jatiya, Beta Nada Kive Mora, Prabhu Bole, O Beta, Jhake Na Yatha Joy, Sei Mata Kata Kahi, Tathaya Mishai, Vashishta Pade, Jabe, Advaita Rasang, Bhakti Yoge, Nache Gaye, Trinakari Danta, Anya Sampradaye, Giya, Jhake Sambaye, Nahi Mane Bhakti Jate, Maraye Sadaya, Bhakti Stane Uhar Haila Aparad, Eteke Uhar Haila Darshan Bad. Mukunda was not given the darshan when Krishna Mahaprabhu was performing his Mahaprakash Leela. And the reason Mahaprabhu is telling in this verse, I just read, we'll read the translation. Mahaprabhu said, I can never bestow mercy upon Mukund because sometimes he displays his humility. Danta Shane, Danta Trinaloy. He sometimes displays humility by taking straw between his teeth. And other times he attacks me. In other words, he keeps one of his hand at my feet, displaying humility, and other at my neck, attacking me. According to his own convenience, sometimes he behaves as my follower, and at other times he criticizes me. Hence, I cannot reward him. Wherever he goes, seeking his own benefit, he represents himself accordingly and mixes with people. Sometimes he supports the doctrine of Mayavad by reciting from the book of Yoga Vashishta, which is endowed with Advait philosophy. And other times he shows his faith by abandoning the impersonal concept and cultivating Krishna Bhakti by becoming meek and humble, and by dancing and performing. When he enters the sect of impersonalist, he rejects the eternality of Bhakti and condemns the devotees with the weapon of argument and logic. In this way, he has committed an offense at the feet of Bhakti Devi. Therefore, I cannot give my darshan. So the point is that when devotees associate with materialist or Mayavadis, suddenly you can see there is a change in consciousness that we don't value devotee association and we condemn devotees. So that becomes an aparad to Bhakti Devi. And then you won't get the mercy. And Mahaprabhu himself did not give mercy to Mukund in this pastime in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So that's why we should be very, very careful. Mukunda Dutt is an eternal associate of the Lord. So whatever Mahaprabhu said to him in this regard is only a pastime. He's an eternal associate. He acted like that in order to demonstrate something to us. So it's a pastime. But Mahaprabhu's objective is very grave. So there must be an extremely confidential reason for his statements here. So although this is a pastime, but whatever Mahaprabhu is instructing, those instructions, there is some deep meaning. His confidential instruction is that we cannot please Krishna just by accepting initiation and executing the various limbs of bhakti. Only those who have unwavering faith in exclusive devotion can satisfy him. We can see that Mukunda Dutt sometimes used to go to these Mayavad association and hear. That means he did not have faith in exclusive devotion. So if we are also doing that, that means we don't have faith in exclusive devotion. Those who have developed such faith accept the path of unknowledge devotion with great determination. They do not visit places where doctrines that are unrelated to Shuddha Bhakti are discussed. They go to places where the topic of pure devotion is being discussed and they listen with great interest. So even as devotees, we should be very careful from where we hear and who are our perceptors, from where we are deriving inspiration, who present the teachings of Prabhupada very systematically in our ISKCON. So we should be careful so that we, we can, do a thorough, clear analysis. That's why we have to see the tendencies of Pratibimba, Chaya and all that. Simplicity, determination, and exclusive desire for bhakti are the natural characteristics of such unalloyed devotees. They never approve of statements or activities that are opposed to the principles of bhakti merely to gain popularity. Pure devotees always remain indifferent to such things. These days, most people don't try to avoid the above mentioned offenses. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking about his times. So we should be careful. Just from seeing the devotees or hearing narrations of the Lord activities, they display symptoms of apparent spiritual ecstasy, such as trembling and shedding of tears, and they support spiritual philosophy in assemblies, but afterwards they are again seen becoming mad after sense gratification. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, we know that there were so many apasampradayas. They used to come in the association of Vaishnavas, dance, chant in ecstasy, and then go and do all nonsense activities. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is pointing all that. Therefore, dear devotees, what can be said about the so-called firm adherence, nishtha, of those who display these bogus sentiments? So even as devotees, if we are regularly coming to temple and then also we are breaking the regular principles, eating in some hotels or eating in some fast food, oh, that is also, without onion, garlic. That means we are not strict about our devotional principles. So we'll not get benefited much. We'll be, committing offense to Bhakti Devi. So that's why we should be very careful. We understand that just to earn fame, they display these symptoms before the devotees. Out of greed to acquire fame or other material benefits, they display varieties of this sort of conduct. It is a matter of great sorrow that these people not only commit an offense at the feet of Bhakti Devi by propagating deceitful philosophies in the name of Bhakti, but also completely ruin the lives, spiritual lives of the living entities in this world. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is definitely speaking about these upper sampradayas. Dear readers, we should remain very careful not to ever commit any offense at the feet of Bhakti Devi. Please mark this point. This is very, very important. If we don't commit offenses to the lotus feet of Bhakti Devi, then by Bhakti Devi's mercy, we'll quickly from Chaya Bhakti Abhas come to Shuddha Bhakti practice. First of all, we must vow to perform bhakti while remaining indifferent to all this. We must never do anything or speak anything that is contrary to bhakti just to gain popularity or collect followers, puja la pratishta. We should remain simple and straightforward in our actions. There shouldn't be any difference between our words and our actions. That is saralta. We must never try to gain the favors of those who are indifferent to bhakti by displaying to them artificial symptoms of advanced devotion. Oh, I'm advanced devotee, just to attract followers. We should not do that. We should always remain chaste to the principles of unalloyed devotion and will never support any other doctrine. Our external conduct and the feelings within our heart should be one and the same. Andar ek, bahar ek, So if we are inside something, outside we are showing something else, that is not good. So that's how he ends this article. Now, chapter 3 is the natural characteristics of Bhakti. We know that Shuddha Bhakti has these 6 characteristics: Kleshagni, Shubhada, Moksha Lagutat Krit, Sudurlabha, then Sandranand Visheshatma, Sri Krishna Akarshan. So this is the 3rd chapter which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to discuss. It's also an important chapter, but this will not take much time for our discussion, which we will take up tomorrow. So any questions, any clarifications? Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Bro, this last statement you said, if there is a difference between our external conduct and internal feelings,
Yeah.
so he will be termed as what, a kutil person, or can we say
Yes,
mithyachari?
duplicity. That is duplicity. Opposite of simplicity is duplicity or kutinati, deceitful.
And mithyachari will be different. Oh,
Mithyachar is a term used in the Bhagavad Gita. Mithyachar is a little different. Because Mithyachar is a little different. Pretender. One is externally showing that I've controlled my senses, but internally in his mind, he's always meditating on the same subjects. He is pretending. Whereas a devotee who is sincere, he's trying his level best to control his senses. He's putting his efforts. But because of the samskars, he's not able to control. He's battling with the senses. So that cannot be called as pretending. That, because of the samskars, because of anartha-nivritti has not happened, he's putting his efforts. Krishna is seeing that. So that is sincerity. But pretension means, you show externally that you are something, but internally you are not. So that is pretension. And that is very close to, duplicity. It is because of duplicity behavior, but you are pretending. But sincerity means that you are trying, but you are not able to control the senses. Here he is externally showing that he is controlled his senses, but internally, he's always meditating upon it. That's the difference between the two. I hope it is clear.
right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions, clarifications? Yes. Okay, so we'll stop here. Shri Bhakti Tattva Vivek ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki Jai. Hare Krishna.